But you mentioned something about gene therapy, that it could potentially increase natural testosterone production to, let's say, 2,000 nanograms per
Yeah,
deciliter.
that's
And that
a
there's
luteinizing hormone, the mini circle.
yeah.
So we'll have that available hopefully next year. And so basically it's LH. So basically same technology, injection in your arm, and then the
Mhm.
LH will go into your circulatory system. And I'm sure your audience knows, once you have LH in your circulatory system, what that does to your body. We're going to optimize it so you get into the upper 2/3 of testosterone range, because I think
Right.
that's where you get the anti-aging longevity benefits, and that's where most people feel good. And you're not going to have any of the side effects that you get with supraphysiological dosages.
Right. And you said the potential could be like a total testosterone of 2,000 nanograms per deciliter.
Yes, you could go up to there. Yeah.
So now you're putting all the TRT clinics out of business.
Yes, that's going to be the plan.
Welcome to Vigorous Podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Adeel Khan. Doctor, the first time I saw you was on Fouad Abiad's YouTube channel about 3 years ago. And I think it's exactly 3 years ago. It was launched in January 2021, where you discussed about PRP treatment for Fouad Abiad. And ever since then, I've seen you everywhere on every podcast, and I saw you at Swiss Symposium. I mean, it's so good to see you like really get into your own and become so popular over the last couple of years, because you're really on the forefront of stem cell therapy and gene therapy and all that stuff. So that's why I wanted to have you on. Let me know how you got started in this field.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, because it's basically just a desire to really want to help people. When you go into medicine, you're basically naive a little bit, in the sense that you think that you're being taught the best solutions and you're being taught from the best people. And you, at least for me, I quickly realized that there's a little bit of indoctrination and I would say conditioning in terms of what we're being told. And then once you go kind of outside of just the guidelines and you start reading about functional medicine, integrative medicine, it kind of leads you down this whole route of what's the actual underlying cause of disease, as opposed to just being like, these are the pathophysiological issues, and then treating the symptoms by managing the disease. And so that shift kind of happened to me during medical school, just because I came from a fitness background, because I was a personal trainer before, and I was into, excuse me, bodybuilding and powerlifting. So I already had that kind of different perspective, and then it just became more and more, I would say, deepened after I finished my training, because there's all these patients. I was a sports doctor initially, so like medical doctor, and then specialized in sports medicine. And in sports medicine, we're obviously treating injuries and pain, working with a lot of athletes. But then you're kind of like just doing cortisone, physio, and then surgery for a lot of them traditionally. But I was lucky, because I was working with Dr. Anthony Gallia, who's kind of like the man when it comes to PRP injections, hence why I was on Fouad's podcast,
Right.
and had all the different details about how to do PRP. But Dr. Gallia has been doing that stuff for like 20 years, maybe almost 30 years now. And so it's kind of like, what's the next progression? And so that's how I got into this whole regenerative medicine world, because PRP is really the basic stuff. But then there's so much more. When you open the regenerative medicine box, you realize there's this whole umbrella of cell therapy, gene therapy, tissue engineering, and then now it's really about combining those. And so I think we're really the first ones in the world to really combine these approaches. And so obviously there's a lot of attention and excitement, just because we're doing some unique things that no one else is doing, and helping a lot of people that no one else is helping. So it's definitely really rewarding.
So, but for you, because you're offering all these unique treatments and therapies, you're being limited a little bit in the Western world, and now you have to fly all over the world to kind of find the best stem cells and find other countries where you can offer these services. So, in the process of doing that, like, where are you located now? Like, where can people find you besides the United States? Because
yeah, it's like where's Waldo? You have to basically go on my Instagram to see where I am, because I am traveling a ludicrous amount. And so the main practice jurisdictions is for U.S. patients is Mexico, Los Cabos, and then we're opening up in Bahamas probably sometime in the next 12 months. And then we also work in parts of Europe, Switzerland, and then Dubai and Tokyo and Japan. So those are kind of the areas right now that I practice in, partly because it's where it's allowed, and partly because I like those areas. And so at least for me, traveling to those areas is enjoyable. And for most of my patients, a lot of them are from the US or Europe or so that those locations work out well. But the goal, I mean, obviously with all this stuff is to show the regulatory bodies that there's enough evidence to get them to approve it. However, having said that, I do think there is a lot of antiquated regulation around this stuff, and that's not just me saying it. That's just I'm just being completely objective. If you look at something like Japan, a country that's very developed, has a regulatory framework, all this stuff, has been doing it for 10 years, then it kind of makes you question, why is this stuff still illegal in the US and in countries like the UK and Canada, and like you said, the Western world, like Australia as well, and a lot of these countries where it's like you can't even touch this stuff, and but then the way I look at it is, if FDA really cared about people, they wouldn't allow them to eat stuff like Skittles and all these pro-cancerous, oncogenic stuff in our environment. Let's just be honest. Like, and now we know. So if FDA really cared, they wouldn't allow this stuff that we know, and the toxic burden. And like, I mean, it's just. Anyway, there's I could go on. There's a whole rant I could go on about how, they just, there's so much stuff that they don't do properly when it comes to the food supply chain, and that if they really cared about what people are putting in their bodies, they would regulate that stuff better. But so I don't think it's I think it's just simply, unfortunately, a pharmaceutical based and surgical based industry. And there's lobbyists who want to make sure that this stuff doesn't become mainstream, but it's going to become mainstream. There's no doubt about it.
I think so. I hope so. Fingers crossed. Yeah. I'm a firm advocate for, whatever you decide to do with your body, it's your responsibility, and no governmental intervention should take place. As long as you do it informedly under guidance, then I'm not against it at all. And I see, like, I was in the US for a month. I went to Swiss Symposium, to Mr. Olympia, traveled, did a lot of podcasts. And I ate outside a lot of my meals, right? Albeit modified to the best of my abilities, right? Because I still want to follow a healthy lifestyle and get some protein in. And then I came back, I did my blood work before and after the United States. And this is trying to eat as healthy as possible. And all my metabolic markers were off. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I can't imagine living there and then eating outside multiple meals per day, like general population, how bad their metabolic markers must be.
And someone like you, to put it in context, you have a lot more resiliency because you already have muscle, which is protective in of itself. You could live a healthy lifestyle. So by resiliency, I mean your body has better adaptability to deal with the stressors that you're putting into it compared to the average person. So imagine what chance does the average person have, right? We have a very obesogenic environment that's basically designed to make you fail. And so it's very challenging. And that's why I'm not, I don't really, I get that this, this stuff is becoming really popular from like people who are, very loud about exercising and stuff like that in mainstream. But that stuff, to me, unfortunately, is going to become almost near impossible to scale it unless you have a solution for people to build resiliency in their body to make that stuff actually more realistic. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, like the gene therapies, like what they do is they can make exercise a lot more easier to stick to because they get you more benefits. They give you more energy. If you're tired all the time from the food you're eating, or you have chronic pain, or you can't recover properly, it's gonna be really hard for you to stick to the gym. There's
that
big factor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's get started with this gene therapy then. Like, what does gene therapy entail? Like, are you literally administering genes so they have increased protein expression, or like, how does it work?
Well, that's it. Yeah. So gene therapy, I think, scares a lot of people because they're like, oh, are you modifying my genes? And so there's different, like, I would say, let's say, magnitudes of gene therapy. So for example, CRISPR gene editing technology is a much more invasive one. CRISPR has been around for over 10 years, but they finally got their first actual approved therapy just in the last couple months. And it took them a long time because CRISPR is actually editing your genetics in a sense.
Right.
And so obviously when you're editing your genetics, there's more risk. There's also something called off-site targets, which means CRISPR may edit something that it's not supposed to, which is obviously a little bit scary. And then, so there's things with it, right? Obviously CRISPR technology has improved a lot, but there's still that risk with it. So, and then there's something called viral vectors. Viral vectors have been around for a while. Mm-hmm. And viral gene therapies, the problem with them is sometimes you have to go on immunosuppressants. They're viruses. So that means that there's no reversibility to them because it's a virus. It's not something that could be repeated. And it's also can translocate and cause issues potentially, and that has happened. There has been case reports of that. So there are some risks with viruses. So what we have is very unique because it's called a plasmid. So a plasmid is just from a bacteria called E. coli, which it basically we take out the plasmid from the cell, and then we can use that as a vector to carry the gene of interest to transform the cell to tell that cell to make more of this specific protein or peptide. So just kind of like you said, so increasing gene expression, but it's not actually changing your genome. So that's the key difference.
Is that messenger RNA then, or is it something else?
No, it's just whatever we technically could do mRNA, and we could, and if in theory we could probably make a safer and better vaccine than what Moderna and Pfizer have, because they use what's called a lipid nanoparticle vector.
Yeah.
And the lipid nanoparticle vector, the problem is that now we know it's immunogenic in some people, and it can have off-site targets. Hence why some people had some weird reactions to the vaccine. And I've seen that clinically. It's like, why? It's like, if this is it's just, as a physician, as a clinician, you obviously are like, okay, why are people having these weird reactions if it's a very safe vaccine, that this shouldn't happen? So once you dig into it a little bit, you realize it's because of the lipid nanoparticle vector, and also there's some issues with purification, and there was something called DNA fragments left into the vaccine. And so, and so anyway, that's a whole other topic. But basically, with the plasmid vector, it's non-immunogenic, so it's not going to stimulate your immune system, and there's no off-site targets. And the beauty of it is it's non-integrating. So it's called an episomal vector. So meaning it's not going to change your genome. And let's just say for whatever reason, you have a weird reaction. Has never happened yet. We've done it for over 300 people now. We're probably getting into, we have like thousands of people waiting for it. So we're going to really scale up in the next few months. But basically, it hasn't caused any reactions in anyone as of yet. But let's just say for whatever reason, it does cause a reaction. It's because it's from E. coli. You can just take tetracycline or doxycycline, and it's a kill switch. So meaning it will get it out of your body. So it's reversible. So that's why. So basically, our kind of marketing, or so to speak, is kind of just saying that it's the world's first reversible plasmid gene therapy.
Okay, understand. And how does this differ from a recombinant growth hormone technology that also uses E. coli bacteria? Because I'm sure it's entirely different. I mean, both are used. E. coli are being used in both treatments, but it probably varies greatly.
Yeah, it's no plasmid vector in that. So that's still using the recombinant DNA from the actual E. coli. So it's a little bit different. So the plasmid vector is what we have that no one else has. So that's kind of our proprietary technology.
Okay.
So the plasmid, it's all about the plasmid. So the mini, hence the name mini circle, because if you look at a plasmid under microscopy, it looks like a little circle. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. Yeah. And so how would a gene therapy entail? Let's say you want to improve somebody's cardiovascular and muscularity and overall health and energy levels. Like, how would this gene therapy kind of proceed? Like, what would the
I'm sure you've talked about peptides on your channel before, right? And so so people are familiar with, so probably your audience is somewhat familiar with peptides. So basically, instead of having to inject yourself with peptides every day, as people do, we can encode whatever peptide we want onto our gene therapy, and it'll stay in your system for 18 to 24 months. So we can really do any target. Yeah. And so the first one we did was Follistatin, but we can do BPC, we can do TB4, we're going to do a GHK, luteinizing hormone, which is basically an alternative to TRT. But all of these are essentially methods. So you could do one injection, subcutaneous or intramuscular, and it'll last for 18 to 24 months. So you don't have to keep on injecting yourself.
That's insane.
It is insane. It's hard for people to appreciate how insane that is, because
I appreciate it right now. Take my money, because I've been enhanced for since I was 26 years old. So that's 15 years. And I've done so many shots in my life, and I think the cumulative shots of my entire audience ranges into the billions. So if you can take a couple of shots away, it would be absolutely fantastic. So with this gene therapy, you can basically instruct the body to produce hormones you would otherwise need, or processes that you would otherwise need exogenous hormones for. So if you can have gene therapy regarding luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, then you would not need exogenous LH or FSH in fertility protocols, or for
Exactly.
hormone replacement therapy protocols. Now, with this gene therapy would give you something that's super physiological to the point
No,
that you don't need a gram of test per week, like what the stupid bodybuilders do, you know?
well, actually, I guess you could theoretically do it. Obviously, we're not going to be doing it for that purposes. We're doing it for
No, okay.
optimization.
Therapeutic.
So therapeutic, exactly. So although in theory, I guess we could manufacture it so that it could give you supraphysiological dosages. Although we're not planning to do that at this moment.
No, of course, I understand. Yeah. Unless there's another guy like Peter Thiel who's willing to invest a little bit more for, right?
Well, the thing is, I mean, I think our products, I think, will be great for the enhanced games because
Yeah.
follistatin, I mean, technically it is on the WADA banned substance, but I don't think you can't really test for it anyway. But the reality is this stuff is probably being used. I mean, even peptides in general are being used a lot, and they are banned technically. But like BPC 157, in my opinion, should not be banned. Like that is
No.
ridiculous. But just to give everyone context, the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, like they're always very antiquated. And in 2008 or 2009, when PRP was first becoming popular, they even banned PRP. And PRP is not enhancing at all. It's just to help with recovery and injuries.
Yeah.
So they're just very slow, and they're just honestly like they need to go. So I'm glad this is happening, and I hope IOC goes out of business and this becomes the main
I
way
think
of,
it's going to happen very soon
yeah.
because I mean I met Dr. Aaron De Souza here in Bangkok and I had a podcast with him, and he's really on a mission, and with the funding that he has now, I don't think the Olympics will be around for long.
Great. That's great for
Yeah.
humanity. Yeah.
And I agree, and the same with IOC and same for WADA. I mean, WADA has been public enemy number 2 besides taxes.
Exactly. WADA
Public enemy
basically
number 2 since it
anything that
started.
actually works, WADA just bans essentially. So and
Yeah.
it's sad because now you're just the reason why I have such a distaste for them is because you're treating your athletes like you don't care about their longevity, basically. Because if you actually cared about their longevity, you would give them access to the stuff, and you'd want them to do anti-aging, longevity, and recovery stuff that's going to enhance performance, improve recovery, and ultimately de-age your body. Because the biggest thing that follistatin does that we showed in a clinical trial is de-aging, which means like looking at intrinsic biological age. It actually slows down the aging process, and it even reverses it to a significant extent. It ranges, but on average, like if you're over 60, it de-ages your body 11 years with one injection, which is pretty significant.
Oh, wow.
But there is some debate about how accurate those tests are, but even clinically, you see people have more energy, more strength because it's a myostatin inhibitor, because follistatin has an antagonistic relationship with myostatin. So the higher your follistatin, the lower your myostatin. So by inhibiting myostatin, I'm sure bodybuilders know it can increase your ability to put on muscle. You're not going to blow up because it's not a knockout gene. It's not like you're not going to become like those cows, but you will. But it can make it easier to put on muscle, and because of the metabolic improvements too, it can also help to lose fat easier. So I kind of call it a body recomposition tool.
Yeah, I agree. So I recently reviewed ACE-038 and ACE-083. I'm not sure if that's the one that you're using. Those are undergoing clinical trials. And of course, one is a subcutaneous administration, one is intramuscular that shows localized effects only, and it's rapidly inactivated in the bloodstream. And the clinical evidence did look highly promising, and that's the only one I reviewed because all the other ones are not really available. So which is the one that you're currently using? Because there's follistatin variants.
Yeah, we
right?
use follistatin 344, and then but it cleaves into 314 when it actually acts on the nucleus and alters gene expression. So it's cleaving into that form. That's the one that we're using, and it's been studied for a long time, and it's been around for a while. So it's very highly tissue specific. So it only affects skeletal muscle and not cardiac muscle, and there doesn't seem to be any major risk with it. And that's part of the reason we chose this as a first target as well, the safety profile of follistatin. Yeah.
Right. So the one I investigated was ACE-031 and ACE-083, which I think it's combined with immunoglobulin, IgG, or IG, another one. But apparently you're using a different one. So, and the reason why 344 was chosen is because there's more clinical evidence and because it's safer.
Yeah, the tissue specificity is the main reason. So and that's the big thing about this stuff is obviously you want to make sure you're not doing any harm. And I think I can be very confident that this stuff is not going to harm you. And the other big thing too, I think, because a lot of people are like, how do you know the results in, like, let's say 10 years or 20 years won't cause anything? It's Well, I think you have to come back to first principles, which is basically if you're adding muscle to your body and you're decreasing systemic inflammation, those are the two of the biggest drivers of aging and of why your body starts to deteriorate. So we can be pretty confident that we're not making anything worse by adding muscle to your body and decreasing inflammation.
Exactly. Plus, I mean, most of the performance-enhancing drugs that we take in bodybuilding, right? Clenbuterol, steroids, growth hormone, IGF-1, insulin, they all proliferate some sort of heart enlargement anyway. So if we can replace those or lower the dosages, and replace that with something like follistatin. And do you literally inject follistatin, or is this part of the gene therapy where the genes instruct the body to continuously produce follistatin 344?
So basically the process takes, I mean, for the actual patient, it takes like 20 seconds. It's just an injection, just like a vaccine. But before they come in and we prepare it, it takes about 30 minutes. And the reason for that is because we mix a transfection agent with the actual follistatin peptide. So the way we do that is we just mix two vials together and think of it as a tumbleweed. You know those tumbleweeds that go through the desert, and those like mixing with the paper bag. So imagine that paper bag is going through the tumbleweed and it mixes, and it takes about 30 minutes for it to mix and transfect, so to speak. And then once it's transfected, then we administer it. So then we're administering, and then that basically that's the plasmid vector that has the instructions to tell your cell to make more follistatin.
Okay, so I completely reviewed the wrong compounds then. I might have to take that video offline. Start looking at the follistatin 344 instead. And what about, there's a couple other compounds. I had to put them here on the side as my notes. There's trevogrumab and garotisumab. Let me just put it here in the chat. There's a couple other ones which are activin inhibitors. Let me see. I can't put that in private chat. Can you see that? The comment?
Oh yeah. Oh, so those are all monoclonal antibodies, obviously. So
right.
So I'm not huge fans of mAbs, the whole class of them, because they can have off-site targets. If you look at the literature of mAbs, and that's why they can have other unintended side effects. So I'm not a huge fan of mAbs in general. So I don't like, we probably won't develop a gene therapy for that.
Right, because I saw that they're undergoing clinical trials, but they're not available anywhere. So I didn't really do research on it, because usually when I do a video about particular compounds, I would like people to, see if they can use it themselves. But if it's not available, then it's kind of pointless to make a dedicated video.
Obviously there's going to be endless amounts of, clinical trials within the pharmaceutical world. But I really think the way things are going, there's going to be the cell and gene therapy stuff is going to just really outperform pharmaceuticals. So, but that's why pharmaceutical companies are trying to get into this as well. But the problem is, because they can't, it's tricky, because just like with peptides, unless you have a specific way to have a patented technology, then you can't monetize it the same way. So that's why they're not as interested in it. That's why,
Right, and you saw recently that I think only a couple of months ago, the Article 503A or B, where they banned all those peptides in the United States.
Exactly.
After they already banned HCG and labeling it as a biological, and now they banned oxandrin, although oxandrolone is still available through the compounding pharmacies. I mean, it seems that it's getting more limited than unlimited. And
so it's like, why would you ban something that, again, has such a low risk profile? And instead of, again, I'm not saying it's good for people to just order it online and do it necessarily, but why not create a little bit of regulation and have a little bit of a framework so you can allow people to do it safely? Because compounding pharmacies were making it, so they have high standards, obviously. So it's not like people were necessarily just getting it off some random person off the street. And so you already had a system built in. All they had to do was create a little regulation around it. But the reason they banned it is obviously because the pharmaceutical companies, they're going to create a patented BPC 157 that's going to be some brand name. And then that way they can feed their ecosystem that way. Their insurance companies and everyone can profit from it. Because right now they can't profit from it. So that I can almost guarantee you that's what's going to happen. Because I mean, even trizepatide is a perfect example. So Mounjaro, which is the second generation of Ozempic, essentially is just trizepatide with some complex added to it that doesn't really do anything, but it allows them to have a patented technology. So it's way more expensive than the trizepatide that you can order from like any peptide manufacturer, but it's basically doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's same with the retrotrutide that's now being developed, the GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon combination. And it's funny, when tirzepatide came out, I got it from my compounding pharmacy here in Thailand, who are still, well, they're not under FDA regulation of the United States. They're under the Thai FDA regulation. So I can get tirzepatide no problem. And then I looked into the pathways of GLP-1 and GIP, and I combined it with glucagon, which I got obviously from the black market. And that was even more of a game changer compared to regular tirzepatide and semaglutide, which is just a glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist. So I'm really looking forward to that. But it's unfortunate that, of course, with the patented formulas, the markup is so insane that it's almost unavailable now.
But what you said is so important, which is you basically take an amplified approach, which is you amplify things so they work synergistically and they work together. And that's the way we do a lot of our treatments too. And that's why, but it doesn't work in the traditional medical model where they're very reductionistic and they want to just say, oh, just do this one thing. And if this one thing is the way you're going to solve your problem, and that's it. But that's not, the human body, it's much more complicated than that. And things work better when you stack them. And we get way better outcomes that way. Even with a lot of our treatments, we're combining, peptides and stem cells and gene therapy, and we're doing a lot of those for chronic complex diseases. But from a pharmaceutical industry, they can't. It's not like they can patent a protocol necessarily. So for them, it's like there's no big money in it for them.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, and then the lobbying and stuff, it just makes things even more complicated. So I completely understand why you're just abroad and offer services somewhere else, because you got to go where you're treated best. And if
medical tourism is going to boom. It's only a growing industry. I think patients deserve access to the best treatment, and at the very least, they should. Let's say they should at least deserve informed consent. They're not even getting informed consent anymore. And what I mean by that is, like, you go to let's say you have osteoarthritis, and you go to your physician, and they're like, okay, these are your options: cortisone injection. And then if that doesn't work, maybe hyaluronic acid, which is like a gel. And then if that doesn't work, then you can go do surgery. And that's pretty much it. And that's kind of the standard of care of model. And that's still what most guidelines recommend. And so you're not even giving patients access. You're not even giving them improper informed consent, because you're not telling them what are the other options out there that actually are viable. It's obviously like PRP, like stem cells, culture expanded stem cells, and now we have gene edited stem cells, which we'll talk about, and like all this other stuff that's actually out there and is viable solutions. And then the other big thing that bothers me is that they don't tell people the risk of the intervention of like cortisone either. So you're not getting proper informed consent, because you're not even telling them that cortisone's chondrotoxic, which means it eats away at cartilage. And it's such a sad thing to see, because I see it in so many pro athletes and so even if I say pro athletes who are supposed to have access to, like, the best of the best, if they can't even get access to that, then what are the chances an average person has, right? Because I treat many pro athletes, and we're talking like the top athletes in the world, and they have to they obviously don't tell their team doctors that they're coming to see me, but their team doctors are essentially clowns. They only know how to do surgery, which is not a bad, like, they're great surgeons. I'm not saying they're not amazing surgeons, but they just don't know anything about this field that's accelerating at an alarming pace. Essentially, it's growing so fast.
Yeah, preventative medicine will always, be a little bit in the shadow of just doing the most invasive thing possible, it seems, and that's still a problem. It's with bodybuilding, and it's with athletes, and general health in general. It's very problematic, I would say. And hopefully, at one point, this will slowly phase into more awareness. And thank God for YouTube, where we can actually talk about this stuff and inform a lot of people of alternatives.
Well, I think, the problem is institutions have such a big control over this stuff, and the institution of pro sports is massive. So obviously, the institution of NHL, NFL, NBA, all that stuff, basically, their institution is essentially to feed the team doctors who are surgeons and keep that ecosystem going. So the surgeons aren't interested in regenerative medicine, because it's going to take away from their bread and butter, which is how they make, and that's kind of their skill set. Their skill set is to cut. It's not to inject or to prevent injuries and, enhance performance and longevity. They don't know anything about that stuff. So that's why I think it's a shame, because people are like, oh, I went to the team doctor for this team, so they must be a good doctor. It's like, well, it's not really. They're a good doctor for surgery, but beyond that, like, they're not a good doctor for, if you're looking to enhance your performance or for longevity or for regenerative medicine, they don't really know anything.
Right. Yeah, and luckily, the smart athletes, they usually find their way to a guy like you or me or somebody else that's very knowledgeable, and then we can kind of set them on the right track, and just have to tell them, so, well, you have an injury, so maybe take yourself out of the testing pool for a while, and then you do what you have to do, and then once you're healed, you can maybe 6 weeks from now, when all the metabolites have cleared, you can enter back into the testing pool, and then if they do test you randomly during the competition or off season, then at least you pass.
Yeah, no, I think that stuff should be much more accessible, and it shouldn't be something that's frowned upon, because these athletes, it's actually kind of sad for a lot of pro athletes, because if they get injured, it's kind of like one of my pro athletes, hockey players, he said it this way: it's like a train that keeps going, and they just they kick you off the train, and then they just keep going, and if so, they don't really care.
Right,
Yeah, they don't really, you're basically dispensable to them. And it's unfortunate, because the ones who are benefiting the most are obviously the team owners, who are the billionaires, or the really, really high net worth people. And the athletes are kind of just this disposable asset, but they're the ones who are actually bringing in all the revenue, obviously, and generating all the interest. So to me, the athletes should be looked after at the utmost importance
yeah,
and
I agree.
care. And it's not fair to them, but it's yeah, we'll see what happens. I think things are going to change slowly, especially with the enhanced game. So it'll
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. I mean, Dr. Erden Sosa is very caring about his athletes. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to start it, because there's just too much drama, too much corruption in the Olympics, and even in some of the bodybuilding federations. So at one point, I think things will change, and then hopefully the athletes will come out on front, and then that's even more good advertisement for services like yours or mine, where we just are on the forefront of the latest developments and can offer alternatives based on what the general medical community wants to recommend, and tell them, said, listen, maybe with gene therapy or BPC 157 or PRP, like you mentioned, we don't have to cut your knees off. We can just over the next couple of months we can heal you, and then you're right back on the field for the next season.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does this stem cell gene therapy entail? What?
Yeah, so cell therapy, I like to call it cell therapy, just because now stem cells is, I would say, a very generic term. And I mean, cell therapy is a bit more generic too, but the reason cell therapy and not just stem cells is because there's so many different types of cell therapies now. So, for example, we're not just using stem cells; we're also using other type of cell therapies. For example, like natural killer cells. Like natural killer cells are part of your innate immune system. They help to kill cancer cells, so you can use them as form of immunotherapy, as an adjunctive therapy to radio, like radioactive therapy and radiation therapy and chemotherapy. And then you can also use it as preventative immunotherapy, just to boost your immune system. And then there's other cell therapies like dendritic cell therapies, which are antigen presenting cells. These are things they're doing in Japan to treat cancer, for example. But then there's obviously stem cell therapy too. And so cell therapy as a class is becoming more and more broad, because there's different type of cell therapy. So now, we have like natural kill cell therapy, we have dendritic cell, there's something called macrophage therapy now as well.
Oh, wow.
There's something called CAR T. CAR T is actually available in Thailand. That's one of the few places you can get it.
Really?
CAR T is, we're in the process of manufacturing CAR T, but CAR T is essentially where you take your T cells out of your body using a process called leukapheresis, and you isolate those T cells, which are part of your adaptive immune system. And T cells, there's something called cytotoxic T cells, or killer T cells, you can call them too, which are designed to help to kill cancer cells. And so they can be used, they can be gene edited with this antigen called chimeric antigen receptor, or CAR. So you enhance the T cells' ability to hone in and kill cancer. So they can do it for leukemia and different blood cancers. And so basically for multiple myeloma, lymphoma, you can actually get patients into remission using the cell therapy. The problem is it's not covered by most insurance still, and it's not accessible. It is FDA approved, so they've at least got that going, but it's still super inaccessible. And so that's one of the reasons we're manufacturing it ourselves, so we can make this accessible to people who are suffering from cancer and looking for alternatives. So, but back to the point, basically, cell therapy is becoming a broad class. So there's all these different cell therapies, and it's only going to get broader as time goes on, and there's more development of more different cell therapies. Obviously, most people have heard about stem cells, but most people probably haven't heard the fact there's all these other cell therapies out there. That's why I like to talk about it a little bit. The stem cells are obviously the most popular form of cell therapy. And the reason is because there was a lot of excitement when they were first kind of isolated because of their regenerative potential, because stem cells have this innate ability to proliferate, which means they can divide and regrow new tissue, and they can turn into different types of tissue. So that's why there was so much excitement about them. But it turns out it's a lot more complicated than just, putting in some stem cells and then hoping that they're going to regrow new tissue. It's not that simple. And so there's a lot of nuances to it. But there's basically really two generations of stem cells. So the first generation is kind of what we're in right now, and which is what most places are doing, which are generally derived from umbilical cord stem cells. So where you're taking them from umbilical cord tissue, you're isolating what are called the mesenchymal stem cells, which is from mesenchymal is just an embryological term, but it's just essentially, it's a certain cell lineage, meaning these mesenchymal stem cells can turn into cartilage, tendon, bone. They have this what's called pluripotency effect. So they're called pluripotent stem cells. So meaning they can turn into these different cell lines. And mesenchymal stem cells are the easiest to access, and that's the reason we use them, because umbilical cord tissue is obviously pretty prevalent, like it's easy to get. And you can also get mesenchymal stem cells from your fat. You can get them from your bone. You can get them from dental pulp. You can get them from all sorts of sources throughout your body.
Really? Dental pulp?
Yeah, I know. There's even menstrual blood. There's menstrual blood mesenchymal stem cell papers out there. I know there's so many interesting sources, but based off everything I've read, umbilical cord tissue does seem to be the best source. But you also have to culture expand them, and that's the key difference, which is you have to isolate them and you have to grow them for a couple weeks, so you get the right dosage. If the dosage is not correct, then these cells won't do what they need to. And that's the biggest problem in the US. If you Google stem cell clinic in the US, there's like 100 clinics in California, Florida, all over. And it's just sad, because obviously patients don't know the difference, right? And they're just being told, oh yeah, you're getting stem cells. Well, you're not really getting stem cells. You're getting probably more like exosomes, which are isolated from stem cells, and they're not culture expanded. They're kind of the soup that the stem cell grows in. They still have anti-inflammatory cytokines, but they don't have the same immunomodulatory and regenerative properties that culture expanded stem cells have. So that's in a nutshell kind of like the biggest, so cell therapy and mesenchymal stem cells, what we're doing right now. And what we're doing most commonly, I would say, are intravenous stem cells for anti-aging, recovery, because intravenous stem cells activate all these different pathways. They activate. So I don't know if you're familiar with kind of, David Sinclair's work, and how the reason he got popular was something called mTOR.
mTOR, nicotinamide riboside, and then he wanted to get that classified as a drug, and then I stopped following.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, he turned out not to be the best. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people are like,
the pockets. He wanted to have his pockets too deep, and then he went to the dark side. It's okay. Yeah. I can still get nicotinamide riboside and nicotinamide mononucleotide. It's no problem for me.
I don't think NMN's that's a side tangent, but I think SS31 is way better, and there's other peptides and stuff that are really good for anti-aging.
Oh yeah, MOTS-c, SS31, NAD+. I have access to all of it.
Well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's other things that I think are better anyway. But again, he's a good marketer. But with mesenchymal stem cells and exosomes, when you do them intravenously, they activate sirtuins, they activate MK pathway, they activate MAPK pathway. And then they also have effects on inhibiting mTOR, which can help with mitochondrial health and reducing inflammation. There's all these hallmarks of aging. So there's basically let's say now there's 12 hallmarks of aging. Before there was 10, but now they're saying there's about 12. And it's like genomic instability, mitochondrial dysfunction, autophagy,
telomeres,
chronic inflammation, gut dysbiosis, loss of proteostasis. There's all these things. So basically the point is, though, when you do these treatments, it turns out stem cells actually target pretty much all these different pathways and all these different hallmarks of aging. And that's why it's really cool. So from a mechanistic level, they're doing all these amazing things. And then from a clinical level, there are clinical trials showing that it can help with frailty. It can help with biomarkers of aging. It's just the quality of the stem cells is the biggest issue. So how you manufacture them. And then for us too, the big thing that I think we do differently is preparing your body for the stem cells. So basically, you want the body to be ready for that signaling, because the way that the intravenous stem cells work more than anything is immunomodulation, which is meaning it's called macrophage phenotyping. They're shifting the phenotype of how the macrophage express cytokines from M1 to M2. So shifting M1 to M2 is called polarization. And when you polarize the macrophages, it's essentially just changing the body from a pro-inflammatory cytokine profile to an anti-inflammatory cytokine profile. And that macrophage polarization is obviously going to have so many downstream effects, because we all know inflammation is tied in. So if you were to say what the two biggest root causes of aging are, there's something called the unitary theory of aging. It's probably oxidative stress and inflammation. Yep. And that a lot of that comes from actually probably mitochondrial dysfunction and immune system dysfunction. So that's why
I'm so happy that you said that, because I've been trying to hammer this into my audience for the last 7 years. So I have like a mitochondrial deep dive video and how to combat inflammation from the performance enhancing drugs that we take. And I've been trying to hammer it in these guys what to avoid, because it is true. Inflammation and oxidative stress is probably the worst you can subject yourself to, especially if it's chronic. Because if you have that for longer periods of time, not only do you age faster, but all the cardiovascular issues start to arise from that.
No, exactly. You have really good instincts, and you're obviously very knowledgeable. So that's great that you're educating your audience on that. So basically, by doing these treatments systemically, that's what we're doing. And so, because a lot of people are like, oh, why would you do stem cells IV? Like, because a lot of them do get trapped in the lungs too. So because they're not big enough to pass through the lungs. But despite that, even though like maybe only 10 or 20% are going to circulate everywhere, there's still such an amazing benefit for aging, but also for many chronic diseases and autoimmune conditions. So there's been clinical trials with inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, where patients actually go into remission. And I've obviously treated many patients with chronic complex diseases. And the reason I think our results are better too, like I was saying, is the peptides that we use in addition to this stuff. Because if you think about it, the stem cells are trying to modulate the immune system, and how can we enhance that? Peptides, right? So that's where we do what we use before, during, and after. So trying to get the body ready for the stem cells, because the stem cells work better if the microenvironment they're going into is less inflamed. There's less senescence. So we use like SS31, we use TB4, fragment 1 to 4, and then FOXO4 DRI, which helps to clear senescent cells. So we kind of use those peptides before the procedure to get your body ready for the stem cells. And then during the procedure, we also use peptides IV. And then afterwards, we use BPC and CJC ipamorelin, because they help with immunomodulation, and they help. CJC ipamorelin has actually been shown in vitro, at least, to help with stem cell survivability. So. Okay. So hence why we use this kind of a combination approach. And I know I'm throwing a lot of jargon, but I think your audience can handle it.
They know all the abbreviations. Trust me. Yeah. So quick tangent on the CJC1295 and ipamorelin. It said with or without the drug affinity complex?
Without.
Without. Okay. So that's a short acting. So that's probably multiple administrations. And part of the reasoning for a growth hormone secretagogue is the different isoforms of growth hormone, like the different molecular weights?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And plus you're creating an environment that promotes healing. I think we all know that this secretagogue is very good for healing, hence why people use it for injuries and anti-aging and longevity too. I think there can be a very good argument to use this peptide 3-4 times a year. You cycle it for longevity as well.
Right. And the funny thing, I just did a BPC 157 deep dive. There's literally one clinical trial which got discontinued for whatever reason. I can't even find the publication. And one human study, which was retroactive to see if knee pain was resolved after BPC 157 administrations. And the other 180 studies have been mostly performed by Dr. Predrag Sikaric from Croatia, showing all kinds of benefits. And one of them was that BPC 157 increases growth hormone receptor density in the fibroblasts of connective tissue. And then if they administered exogenous growth hormone alongside BPC 157, that the recovery was enhanced. So it makes complete logical sense that you combine BPC 157 with the growth hormone secretagogue because there is some overlap there. And
Exactly. And they work
unfortunately,
and they amplify and they work synergistically. Yeah.
yeah, it's great to hear. Great
Yeah,
to hear
no,
this kind of stuff.
yeah, no, but I think I'm the only one in the world doing it. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
for
like
sure. I haven't
I
talked to anybody who actually really understands how all of this stuff connects because most guys would just hyper focus on one thing. Like again, like Dr. Predrag Sikoric, for example, he's hyper focusing on BPC 157. He's the one who isolated it
exactly.
from
And
gastric.
that's the problem with medicine it becomes very these scientists and doctors are amazing, but they're very siloed. And I'm able to because of I guess just my lens, I'm able to take a step back and kind of look at it from a big picture, which is
Right.
why we have so much excitement from obviously like private equity and investors and all this stuff because the big money is interested in this stuff because there is a real application to the general population that's going to happen in the next 2 decades, and it's going to be a really big exciting revolution. So, and I'm hoping with the interventions that we're developing now that they're eventually one day will be covered by insurance companies, but that's probably 2 decades away. 2 decades
Oh
away, but
man.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's
You
my
can retire and you can buy your own island in the Maldives.
yeah. Well, so Follistatin. Just to on that note, we're doing a phase 2 trial in Canada for sarcopenia. So
Okay.
that's starting in the spring, and yeah, I mean the goal is to have this to be the world's first approved therapy for sarcopenia. And sarcopenia, as you probably know, is an epidemic. I would argue probably very under-recognized as compared to osteopenia or osteoporosis. So the more awareness there is, the better it's going to be for us because I think one day I could see follistatin hopefully being prescribed and covered by insurance companies for sarcopenia. And that would be a huge revolution and also, it'd be great for society, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. Yeah. And then of course then the bodybuilders would leverage that right away.
Oh yeah, no. Every bodybuilder wants to do it already. It's just kind of expensive right now, but so hopefully with time it'll become better, more accessible.
So
Yeah.
what kind of cost ranges are we talking about? Just to generalize it, right? Don't have to go into specific details, but what kind are like the cost ranges of some of these treatments?
They range. Like if you're just getting a local injection for like a knee osteoarthritis or something, it might be like 7,000-8,000, but it can range all the way up to like 30,000-35,000 if you're doing like the whole anti-aging package or protocol with everything, with the peptides, stem cells, exosomes, gene therapy, and everything combined. So yeah, it ranges. And then we're adding more. Like we have Klotho. Klotho, I'm sure you know about Klotho. Klotho is an amazing peptide that's I think has over 3,000 PubMed studies in terms of mechanisms, and now there's a lot of trials on it too. And it's this big transmembrane protein and or peptide, and basically it can help protect against neurodegeneration, help protect against kidney disease. So I could see a lot of bodybuilders being interested in that too as a preventative measure. And Klotho gene therapy will be out this year, so we're starting that clinical trial in March.
Wow.
But I'm excited for Klotho for myself, mainly for the brain enhancing effects and potentially to increase IQ. So we're going to measure IQ during the trial too, and we'll see if it improves IQ. It'll be pretty cool to see.
I'm sure Bryan Johnson will be on this right away.
Oh yeah. He wants to do Klotho right away. Yeah.
But you're actually working with Bryan Johnson, right?
Yeah. He's our. I mean, I work with many circles, so he's our patient. Yeah. He's a little bit. He's a little bit intense, but he's obviously wants to do everything. So
I love it though, because I mean, he obviously has the financial backing, and I think I would do the exact same thing because I've been interested in pharmacology since I was 16 years old. It just took a long time before I felt ready for it. And with all these treatments, I mean, it's exciting. You get to do a little bit of body modification, right, to look more youthful, but also become healthier and do anti-aging. And I'd probably do the exact same thing if I had like 500 million, if I was worth that much.
Exactly.
Just as a full disclaimer, I don't think you need to spend $2 million a year just to look young.
No,
I mean, I think you can do it for like $5,000.
Exactly.
There's some very basic health practices and preventative. Again, if you follow the lifestyle, you don't need to put so much anti-aging in place. Because Bryan Johnson, on his own account, I mean, he was drinking a lot. Was a high-level entrepreneur and
stress.
super
Obviously,
stressed.
how did he get to that high net worth? Right, he had to sacrifice family, like he's divorced. He had to sacrifice his health. He had to sacrifice probably sleep and the stress that it takes on you, right? So you sacrifice a lot to get to that high net worth status, but then now then all these guys, they realize, and this is why I work with so many high net worth people, is health is wealth, right? Like after you have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health and you don't have your relationships, then what do you really have? So
Not
So that's
much. I
why,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
what point is the money if you don't have anybody to spend it with? And you can't
exactly.
take it with you if you're dead.
No,
So,
exactly. So that's the part of the reason. And I think I mean I probably get some criticism because of, just being working with all these celebrities and high net worth people. But the only way the stuff is going to trickle down into mainstream society is if these people do it first. That's what
yeah.
happens with any new technology. If it first becomes popular amongst the elite, and then they pave the way for the rest of society to be able to do it. So to me, it's a means to an end to be able to, like, I'm not really into that whole, celebrity kind of worship, like a culture that we live in. But to me, it's like people, for whatever reason, when they hear that I treat this person, they all get excited and they think that adds more credibility to me. So I'm like, sure. Okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
on one hand, it's good marketing, but the other hand, what a lot of people don't understand, like all these new therapies, they cost money, right? And in the beginning, new therapies are expensive. So who can afford it? Entrepreneurs, celebrities, net worth individuals. Once it gets more popular and there's a lot of anecdotal reports, then, and some competition, right? Competition to
Exactly.
bring the price
Exactly.
down is always good.
Capital
It's not good
markets.
for
Yeah.
the originators, but it's
Yeah.
good to bring the price down. Once the price brings down, maybe 5 to 10 years later, then, everybody else can use it. Unless, the medical community artificially keeps the price up, like with tirzepatide and,
Well, that's what they do
semaglutide.
with pharmaceuticals on
Yeah.
purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's why, I mean, my goal with the stem cell stuff is as we transition, like we're going to have the second generation stem cells, which we might as well talk about now, which are
Mhm.
basically what are called induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. It's cellular reprogramming. So think of it
Mhm.
like, I like to think of it like a computer. You can program the computer to do some script and to make it, to do things. Now you can program cells, and you can program cells to kind of do what you want. So it's pretty cool. Because umbilical cord stem cells, obviously, we're not programming them. We're kind of just hoping they'll do what we want. And that's why preparing the environment and doing all those things is so important. But there's still a lot of heterogeneity with not only the donors, but also with the results in terms of like getting the consistent results that we want. It is getting better now. I find with the protocols that we have, we can reproducibly treat a lot of conditions, but there's still a lot of conditions like, let's say, like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or ALS, like things like that, which we really don't have great treatments for. And I think the second generation of stem cells are going to allow us to treat those much more effectively. As we've seen, there's a trial done this year with the second generation stem cells. So basically what they do is they take a skin biopsy, they use something called Yamanaka factors. The Yamanaka factors are this professor from Japan who got a Nobel Prize for figuring out if you overexpress these 4 transcription factors, you take any somatic cell in your body. So you could take like a skin cell, a muscle, fat cell, and you can reprogram it into an embryonic stem cell state. Yeah, exactly. That should be the
Wow.
reaction. That should be the reaction if you understand how powerful that
Oh,
is.
holy moly. And
Yeah.
what kind of surface area are we talking about? Is it square centimeter, or do you need to get a full graph of,
No, you can just take a tiny little bit, and then you can just literally, you can take those cells and then you can grow them, and then you can create what's called an immortalized cell line or immortalized cell bank, and then you just bank them, and you can have an infinite
All
amount of
right,
supply of
take
these
my
stem cells.
fucking money.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because it's basically this is what's called epigenetic reprogramming, which is
All
you're
right.
reprogramming the cells to make them younger again. So how crazy is that? First of all, that your body even has a memory to do that. And second of all, how did he discover this? I have no idea. So he obviously deserves a Nobel
Somebody
Prize.
from the future. Somebody from the
Yeah,
future
exactly.
told them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is
So
what you need to
here,
put in.
take this. It will take
Yeah.
you 10 years to develop, but at least you're getting a head start.
Yeah. So he definitely deserves a Nobel Prize for that. And
Wow.
but then the issue though, so I like to call them Yamanaka stem cells instead of induced pluripotent stem cells, just because I think it's easier to remember than iPSCs. So
Yeah, you give
Yamanaka stem
credit.
cell. Yeah, you give credit. So Yamanaka. So basically, the problem though with Yamanaka stem cells is that because they're embryonic in nature, they have too much stemness, so they can grow into tumors. So no one can. So there's some risk with that, obviously. So
Yeah.
the technology that we're working with the company where we have exclusive licensing. Basically, we have a gene edit, so it prevents these Yamanaka stem cells from uncontrolled proliferation. So it has a kill switch built into it. So if the cells if the cells start growing uncontrollably or proliferating rapidly or uncontrollably, then it'll stop the cells from replicating. So
Okay.
we
Is
have the
that
safety mechanism.
what
So
is
these are
that
called
the
gene edited.
protein?
It's a
Are
gene.
the,
It's a loci. It's a special loci. It's called
Okay.
ralcyclovir. I think it's an antiviral mechanistic basis. But what
Okay.
it does is it basically stops the cell from growing. So it's pretty cool. And basically that gene edit. So these are called gene edited Yamanaka stem cells essentially. And the cool thing about these gene edited Yamanaka stem cells, you can gene edit them in different ways. This is just one edit. You can also make them hypoimmune, which is really cool too, because even though umbilical cord stem cells are immunoprivileged, which means they don't have an HLA antigen, so they're not going to cause host graft versus host disease, but they still have MHC class 1 and class 2. So there could still be a mismatch between MHC class, which is major histocompatibility complex. So that can
So the
still
body might
trigger.
not accept it.
It's not that it won't accept it, it's that it'll cause your immune system to clear it out. And
Right.
so that basically you're not going to get like an autoimmune reaction or something like that, but you just won't get the full benefits because your body cleared it out so quickly. And
Mm.
so if you can make these cells hypoimmune and you can make them stick around longer, then you're obviously going to get more of the regenerative capacity. You're going to get more of the anti-inflammatory effects. Hence, this is the hottest area of research right now in cell therapy, which is basically like, how do we make these cells actually, how do we program to do what we want, and how do we make them stick around longer so that they can actually regrow new tissue? And so that's why these Yamanaka stem cells are so powerful, because they can be gene edited to be hypoimmune. They can be gene edited to not grow into tumors. And then you can also use something called hydrogel scaffolds. So you can use a tissue engineering approach where they're embedded into these hydrogels, which are basically
Right.
polymer scaffolds, hyaluronic acid base. And you can essentially encapsulate them so they're protected from the immune system and they stick around longer and they can actually engraft. So this was shown in a very elegant clinical trial that was done by Blue Rock Therapeutics this year for Parkinson's disease, where they use these Yamanaka stem cells, they differentiate them into dopamine-producing neurons, and then they transplant them into the caudate putamen in the brain. And basically, they were able to regrow new dopamine-producing neurons. And patients who had Parkinson's disease actually went into remission. So that
Whoa.
is the power of these cells. And that's why, how can you not be excited about that?
Yeah. And if that's only one application.
Of course, we're going to do
Yeah.
MS. We're going to do Alzheimer's. We're planning to do diabetes for type 1, type 2, because we're going to make beta islet cells, and then we
Right.
can transplant them into the pancreas. So there's so many applications. It's basically chronic. Hopefully this is really the beginning of the end of chronic disease. That's what I'm hoping, which I think it
And
should be.
yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And especially if the price comes down, then of course, you can basically help everything within a couple decades.
It will.
Help
It will.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that something like Neuralink from
That's
Elon
just. I
Musk?
think that's purely for what do you want to call it? Theatrics.
Yeah, so there's
So
two directions that humanity can go in, right? We can either live forever or we can turn ourselves into machine bodies. And I think that Neuralink is like the earliest step where you can basically upload your brain, and then the robotics will have to catch up. But it sounds that, with gene editing, basically you can continuously regenerate the body with various treatments. And then
yeah, well,
aging.
what I envision is we can use one day we can use cellular reprogramming for the whole body. So we could just de-age
Right.
all your organs and de-age everything in your body back to like when you were 20. I can see
But
that
that also
happening.
means that you're basically immortal now, as long as the finances don't run out.
I could see that happening in the next 20 years, 23 years.
In
Yeah.
next 20, I'll be 60. Oh.
So,
Oh,
well,
not too late.
look, like Alto's lab, like let's okay. There's two companies. There's one called Alto's lab. That's where Professor Yamanaka works now. He was poached, but of course by the Americans, by Jeff Bezos, and he took him
Oh,
and he got him to work for this company called Alto's lab that's doing secretive anti-aging research. And I'm pretty sure they're working on some sort of immortality serum. And so,
Bezos
so
can
that
afford it. He's already on
yeah,
TRT, so
yeah, exactly,
but
yeah.
that's the
So
next step.
yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's gonna. And then there's another company called Retro Sciences, which Sam Altman. Sam Altman is also an investor in our company, but he also invested into this company. But he invested a shitload, like 180 million. And Retro Sciences is just their whole thing is based off these Yamanaka stem cells and trying to figure out if we can use them to reprogram the whole body and make you stay young forever. So
Wow.
so there's massive amounts of money and billionaires investing into this. So this problem will be solved I think in our lifetimes. It doesn't mean immortality. I don't know about that, but I do think there's going to be some massive extension of life and health span as well.
An actual real reversing of age, like you just mentioned, like taking 20 years off. Will that be like a cosmetic thing or an organ thing, or like
the thing is, like, we don't know. Like, for example, with like the Follistatin, we had some patients who took 20 years off their biological age, but we don't know if that necessarily means they'll live 20 years more. And but I don't know if that really matters. What matters to me really is health span, which is like you're going to have more good years, or you're going to have more years that you enjoy life. Like that to me is the most important thing. I don't think it's about living till 500. I mean, I know there's some people who want that, but I think that's
sounds cool.
I think that's still a little bit sci-fi. I think that's still a little bit sci-fi. Like I just don't see that happening. But I do see us living maybe to 120s, 150s even, but we're living a very good quality of life until the end. And that's what I see happening.
So what would be the difference, like, for general population who follow an unhealthy lifestyle, or they become multimillionaires because they put so much into work, right, and they sacrifice their health in the process, taking 20 years off their biological age versus somebody who's been on point since he was 15 years old or she was 15 years old, eat healthy, exercise, no smoking, no drinking, or once in a while, right? Somebody that's otherwise like perfectly healthy. What would be the difference for those people?
No, definitely. There's a magnitude of effect. I would say the magnitude of effect in people who have accelerated aging definitely have a bigger impact. So because their bodies are slowing down more, right? They have more age wear and tear. They feel more aged, right? There's people I have patients in their 50s who still feel great, like they're in their 30s or 20s, right? And without follistatin, without stem cells.
Right.
So for them, the impact isn't going to be as big. They definitely have an impact still. Like they still get more energy, more vitality, more strength, but they're looking more to delay the aging process. They want to stay. So they're doing more for prevention, I would say. Whereas I have other patients in their 40s or even in their 30s who have really accelerated aging because they just didn't take care of their body, and they're looking to reverse the clock, so to speak. And so for them, the impacts of these therapies are hugely beneficial, because they're literally feel like they're 10 years younger, or they literally say like I think Ed Cohn, he said he feels 10 years younger. His buddies who came down, they also, a lot of them were in their 50s or 60s, and they said they felt like they're 10, 15 years younger. Like literally they say they feel like that's that way. So.
Yeah, I remember talking with Ed Cohn after your presentation at Swiss Symposium, and he was so happy about all the treatments that he did with you. And that's great to see, right?
We did the anti-aging stuff. We fixed up his shoulders, but I think giving people just better quality of life is really rewarding in that sense. And I hope it becomes more affordable, so we can help more people ultimately. And it will happen. Like once we have these Yamanaka stem cells, which we're going to have in the next, like definitely by end of this year, because we already have the Yamanaka exosomes, but we're going to get the stem cells soon. And basically, the umbilical cord stem cells will therefore become cheaper, because now we have this new technology that'll be for the elite of the elite, and then the umbilical cord stem cells will be cheaper. And the umbilical cord stem cells, like we talked about, are still beneficial, and they can still be helpful, and they'll become more affordable.
Right. What would be the price range for the Yamanaka stem cell or a cell?
It'll be like $75,000. Yeah, for an IV.
That's still doable.
Yeah,
I thought it would be like several million.
No, it'll be about 75,000. Which is actually, there's a clinic in Thailand that actually charges that much just for IV umbilical cord stem cells. So
they charge way more here, but
which is very questionable, and their quality and their I find that odd. Like we charge. Since we're talking about it anyway, we charge like 15 to 25,000 for an IV of stem cells, which is I think reasonable for 18 to 24 months, and it's obviously not affordable for everyone, but for a lot of people that's very affordable who are into this stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty doable. Yeah, that's like 2 Bitcoin right now. I can do that. I'll patiently wait. I remember at the Swiss Symposium you meant something about gene therapy for the testicles, and that's one of the questions I asked you live there, and everybody laughed, of course. Like I've been off cycle trying to get my wife pregnant. My fertility parameters came back beautifully. My total testosterone levels are like 820 nanograms per deciliter, so I'm good. But you mentioned something about gene therapy, that it could potentially increase natural testosterone production to, let's say, 2,000 nanograms per deciliter.
Yeah, that's a luteinizing hormone, the mini circle. So we'll have that available hopefully next year. And so basically, it's LH. So basically, it'll be same technology, injection in your arm, and then
Hmm.
the LH will go into your circulatory system. And I'm sure your audience knows once you have LH in your circulatory system, what that does to your body, and essentially just getting the dosing to the point where we're gonna optimize it so you get into the upper 2/3 of testosterone range, because I think that's where you get the anti-aging longevity benefits, and that's where most people feel good, and you're not going to have any of the side effects that you get with supraphysiological dosages.
Right. And you said the potential could be like a total testosterone of 2,000 nanograms per deciliter.
Yes, you could go up to there. Yeah.
So now you're putting all the TRT clinics out of business.
Yes, that's going to be the plan. Yeah, because we're going to make the price point for luteinizing hormone a couple thousand. So it's not going to
Are
be
you on
like
the stock exchange?
no, we're going to stay private. We've been offered
I see a huge investment opportunity right here.
We're very very oversubscribed, and
I'm
we've
sure.
had so we definitely don't need more money.
Yeah.
I could like and I'm not being facetious here, but I could see us having a market cap. Eventually, we're not going to probably go. We'll stay private because we just don't need to go public. But bigger than CRISPR one day, and CRISPR is worth about 100 billion. So I could see Mini Circle being worth more than that in the next definitely in the next 10 years. Yeah.
Wow, man. Yeah, because I mean, and that's one injection.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Insane. I gotta change profession then. No,
No.
really, because you're putting an entire, like, if that's successful and popular, then you're literally putting an entire field out of business.
Yeah, disruptive technology is always, it's disruptive for a reason. It's gonna.
Dude, I'm all for it, man. I mean, the whole reason for my YouTube channel is just to improve quality of life through any means necessary, right? Whether that's steroids or gene therapy, I don't really care. I don't really, as long as people get out on top and they stay healthy in the process, I'm all for it. But yeah, I could see that being a huge upset, and there might be some resistance there.
Well, there's a
That's
lot, and there's already negative press. If you Google Mini Circle, Bloomberg and NY Post basically called us crazy.
Nobody cares
crazy
about
nut jobs,
Bloomberg and all those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's but that's, I mean, that's the world we live in, right? I think I always talk about Tesla because I was an early investor in Tesla, and I'm a huge fan of Tesla because of the fact that they made EVs mainstream. But when in the peak of when Tesla was trying to do what they were doing, they almost went out of business. They were actually like literally one quarter, they had no cash flow, and their stock was the most heavily shorted stock in history. It was more than 33% shorted, which means the big hedge funds and everyone was betting that they're going to go out of business. And so they can't raise cash easily. And the reason they were doing this is because big oil obviously wanted them to go out of bankrupt and go out of business. And then every hedge fund manager, every top hedge fund person, all the people who are supposed to know everything about money were telling you to sell Tesla, sell. They're going to go out of business. And then lo and behold, a couple of years later, there's a short squeeze, and they 10 to 20x.
Yeah, they had a huge recovery. Yeah,
and so that to me is just and because I was in that journey and I was in the thick of it because I invested all my money in Tesla. So I remember,
all of it, all in.
I was literally
Nice.
yeah. So I was high risk, high reward. It obviously paid off, but basically, because I was there firsthand, I saw how mainstream media can manipulate the narrative very easily. What the right is very easy for them to manufacture stories, and you can see this. You can see how they can manipulate it. So Tesla was a perfect example because the media wanted them to go. The media, who obviously is incentivized by big oil, was incentivized to run all these stories talking about how negative Tesla is and how it's going to go out of business. They were never talking about the potential of EVs or how Tesla is creating this new technology or how they're paving the way for a better future for humanity and all this other stuff. They're just talking about their numbers and how they're going to go out of business and all this stuff, So I think with what we're doing, it's very similar because we're trying to disrupt entire industries, and there's always going to be negative press and negative, kind of pressure to keep this stuff under wraps as long as possible.
Yeah, especially in the Western world where it's not really recognized yet. That's okay. It's okay. I
It
mean,
doesn't matter. The enhanced games,
yeah.
the medical tourism is the stuff is gonna. It's already becoming, I would say, somewhat mainstream now. Like almost,
Mm.
I would say people's knowledge base of stem cells has grown exponentially in the last few years because
Yeah.
it just seems like so many people, patients of mine, are like, oh, like I've been thinking about stem cells for a few years, but then I saw you on X podcast or I googled blue, blah blah blah, and then they're
Right.
like, that's what they just needed someone they trust to actually do it with, and
Well,
and that's
and explain it like you do because you're great at explaining how everything works. And of course, we all heard about stem cells probably on Joe Rogan the first time, or
exactly,
most
yeah.
of the people. And then Joe Rogan knows about it and has done several treatments himself. But actually talking to a doctor who's on the forefront of all these development, I mean, it's eye opening, dude. What you just told me, I didn't even know. I
Yeah, no,
didn't even know
exactly.
we're
And it's
this
about
far.
exactly. It's about credibility and then building a brand that actually, it's not just about safety, but it's about efficacy and making sure people get good results. So
Hmm.
that to me is what matters the most, and which is why I'm continuously trying to innovate. The problem with Joe and a lot of his places that he recommends to people, they're not really innovating. They've been doing the same things forever, and they don't have anything new. I'm not saying umbilical cord stem cells are bad, but I'm just like we talked about, there's still MHC mismatch, and they're not ideal for like a lot of people. So there is better technology with the Yamanaka stuff, and as far as I know, we're the only ones who are going to have that. And
Just keep doing
that's
what you're doing, and
yeah,
eventually you'll be able to tell Joe in person.
yeah. I think it's soon enough. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah, I
treated.
don't think it's going to take too long. I mean, you've been on Jordan Peterson, and Derek also went there, by the way. Derek More Plets More Dead. He just went on his podcast. So
On
it's
Jordan's.
yeah, last week.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so it's another Canadian. I
Yeah, yeah,
know, on
yeah,
the forefront of the pharmacology.
yeah, yeah.
And he's been on Joe Rogan like 3 times, and I'm sure Derek will watch this podcast. Right, Derek, I know you're watching. So there might be an in already. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. No, I've had quite a few people who've recommended me to him, but so sooner or
Yeah,
later. But it's more about. I mean, that for me is again just an outlet to reach more people. Not that we
right.
need to reach more people. We're a bit overwhelmed as it is, but it's more about raising awareness and giving hope to people who think there's no hope for their chronic illnesses and disease. But
Yeah.
also for your audience, it's obviously about performance and longevity and giving them the best actual biohacking. Like when I went on Dave Asprey's podcast, he kind
Hmm.
of said he's been waiting for this moment for 9 years or something like that, which was because basically he's been waiting for the real biohacking, because
Right.
like we talked about, like cold plunges, breathing, like all this stuff is great, but it's
It's
just
a
it moves in,
surface. It's
exactly, very surface, exactly.
yeah,
Intermittent fasting, these things are microscopic compared to what
yeah.
cell and gene therapy can do. So it's so this is a real biohacking, and now we're in
Right.
that real era. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, so bulletproof coffee and Adderall and modafinil. That's kind of I'm joking. No, so to reiterate this, like I do think that a healthy lifestyle, intermittent fasting, and cold plunges are a great way to kind of manage yourself and stay healthy. And that gives people some time to build up finances. And when the moment does come that they need gene therapy, then the finances are also there. Right? I'll be try to hammer into my audience that whatever you spend on performance enhancing drugs, put the same money in a savings account, like you just mentioned, Tesla, right? An appreciating savings account in the form of stock, bonds, assets, cryptocurrency, whatever. So by the time come you have a medical emergency or you want to do something medically, then the money is there.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It, ma- it
And
makes
then
makes total
a
sense.
treatment of $7,000 or $30,000 or $100,000, it's actually feasible.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I think there definitely has to be a little shift in priorities, and especially in the Western world where people, monetarily, there's definitely a very high consumer spending on just frivolous things, and people don't necessarily save or think about their health. But I
Right.
think that is shifting, and that's hence why this whole longevity field is kind of blowing up, and there's a massive amount of money going into it because
Yeah.
I think people kind of know that this is going into Gen Pop now, and as Gen Pop goes into longevity and healthy living, then it's like there's obviously a lot of money to be made, but then there's also a lot of exploitation and predatory people. So you have to be careful because you and me,
Yeah.
we both come from the bodybuilding world, so I think we have a very different lens because we already know kind of we've seen the fitness industry and how stupid it can be with so many things, and how
It's terrible.
gimmicky it can be, how much fake stuff there is, how much people
Yeah.
lie. So it's going to be the same problem with this whole longevity thing now. Is going to Gen Pop. There's going to be so many nonsense things out there, and then it's going to be over time, you'll see what really sticks around and what, in 5-10 years, I think we'll have a better idea. And I think it will definitely be at least with cell and gene therapy, I think it'll be a winner takes all, and there'll be a few smaller companies, but I think there'll be a few dominant,
no, especially if you're on the
yeah.
if you're on the forefront and you've been on the forefront for a decade or longer, then who's going to compete with you? I mean, or they really have to throw money at it and poach all of your scientists. But there's loyalty involved also.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially if you treat your staff right, then why would they leave?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we're making it so that all our employees get access to our gene therapies after 1 or 2 years of working for us. So, so they'll never want to leave.
You really want to make me invest now.
Or you can come work with us as an advisor.
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. That's only time. Hey, so you're flying all over the world. Like, what does your schedule look like right now? What kind of treatments are you doing on yourself to kind of make all of that doable? Because like if you're traveling all over the world, you're probably sleeping out of hotels. You probably don't own much.
Yeah, I'm in a hotel right now. So yeah, I'm all. It's. I think the big ones I'm doing. Obviously, I've done all the Follistatin. I've done IV stem cells. I do IV exosomes every couple of months on myself. I think if you have the means to, doing IV exosomes every 3 to 6 months is great. But again, this is some for people who basically have unlimited budget, because it's expensive. But it is one of those things that exosomes, again, they don't last as long as stem cells, but they target all those different hallmarks of aging that we talked about. And then the other thing that I found beneficial for me, at least, that I just started really using lately. I don't know if you've heard of this company called Flow, Flow, and they have this psilocybin-based product with lion's mane and a few other nootropics in it, and I really like it. Yeah, it just helps with focus, concentration, and helps to keep me going. And so I like that, and I think that those are maybe some of the things. But then it's honestly, the foundation is a foundation. Like, right. I always try to find time, even if I'm traveling, to do heavy resistance training, heavy, intense resistance training. There is no replacement for that. Periodization and knowing how to train properly is still the key kind of foundation to longevity and health. But people, the problem is there's so much noise out there, and a lot of people just don't know how to periodize and how to actually do progressive training and all that stuff.
Right. I mean, the basics need to be in place, and especially if you have a bodybuilding background. I mean, the diet is probably still similar and the training is still similar, but now you're flying all over the place. And then hopefully you're flying business, right? You've earned that.
Yes.
You've earned that.
No, but there is studies on, flying does stimulate a lot of oxidative stress in your body. Yeah. So one of the devices,
inflammation also.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things I'm getting is NanoV. I don't know if you've heard of that device. It's basically inhaled molecular oxygen and hydrogen, and it goes to help to reduce oxidative stress in the mitochondria. Okay. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So that's one of the devices I'll be getting and hoping to help with some of the oxidative stress. And I'm sure I'm accumulating. But then IV exosomes, then that's why I like doing IV exosomes and stuff too, because they combat oxidative stress as well.
So you're the first high-level entrepreneur that is making good money that can actually prevent the damage of what high-level entrepreneurship entails.
It's true. That's why I think I'm in this very interesting position, because because people see me and they're like, oh, he's doing all this stuff. I want to do that stuff. Yeah. So a lot of my patients are just like, what do you do? I want to do everything you're doing. Like the ones who obviously have the means to do it. Yeah.
So same as my clients, they come to me and say, Steve, I want to do this stack and this and that. And of course you can guide them. I mean, I do stuff on myself first before I would recommend them to people, just to make sure that all the kinks are worked out and see what actually works and what doesn't. And then you go through the comment section like 6 months later and you realize like you really change people's lives with that kind of information or treatments.
Yeah, exactly. And those are low hanging fruit. Obviously, the stuff I'm doing is obviously this next level up. If you've kind of mastered the basics, like you said, you have like you've done like the peptides, you've done the basic stuff to just kind of optimize your body. Then you're looking for something more. Then this is the next level up. Yeah.
Right. And so far that's only available in Mexico, Dubai, and Switzerland and Japan.
Yes, that's where the places we're doing it. I mean, there are other countries like Thailand. Like we said, Thailand offers it too, but I can tell you when I was in Japan, we treated the Minister of Health from Thailand, and there was a reason they're not doing the stem cells in Thailand.
No,
So,
I know. I know. I talk with
yeah.
some of these people here. They're like, no, we're gonna go to Dubai or somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quality, right? It's how you manufacture them, and I wouldn't. I think you gotta be careful where you go, because you can definitely go to places in Mexico, Colombia, all over, but the quality, and then the protocols are important too, right? Like understanding how the peptides come into that, and all that stuff is important, I think.
Yeah, I mean the interplay in pharmacology, right, and the
Exactly.
synergy between, so that's poorly understood, and that's something I always struggled with. Not the knowledge, but struggled with the rest of the fitness industry. They understand how to do research on a particular compound, but not the synergy between. And once you do understand that, and also realize that, there's so many metabolic pathways that you have to think about, because some inhibit particular pathways and some stimulate that, right? So if you do understand that, then you can really make some differences, and you don't have to do crazy dosages or crazy protocols to really get the
No,
job done.
exactly. Chris Duffin calls it the amplified approach, and which I like,
Yeah.
amplification. Yeah, so that's basically what it is, which is, it makes total sense, and that's the way I like to practice.
Right. What's next over the next couple of years regarding the enhancement of sports in general? Not necessarily bodybuilding, but what kind of treatments can we look forward to start breaking some records? Obviously, that's off-label; it's not for medical purposes. But now with the enhanced games, there might be some practical application for particular treatments.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're probably more of an expert on this than I am when it comes to how to enhance people.
Yeah.
But so it'd be interesting. You should definitely become a consultant to the games, the enhanced
Yeah.
games. And then what I can, at least as a physician, I can see people wanting to do the IV stem cells, because IV stem cells, at least by major sports leagues right now, is considered doping. Which is kind of crazy to me, but it's not really. I mean, again, you can't detect it anyway, but so there are obviously athletes to do it. But it's the same thing with the gene therapy. Like, I can see, if you're in the enhanced games, I mean, and you want to win, why wouldn't you do the follistatin? I could, you know what I mean? I could see everyone wanting to do that, just because it also increases neurological drive, which
Right.
means it just makes your muscles activate better, and like, it's very interesting the way you feel on it. And Devin Larratt, who's a world champion arm
Right.
wrestler, he gave me a shout out when he won, because he
Oh,
he
really?
actually,
Okay.
yeah, he was like, "Thank you, Dr. Gog." I was like, "Oh," just because he was he was having some aches and pains, and he was really slowing down a bit, because he is 48, and
Yeah.
the
Well,
follistatin. Yeah, and the follistatin said it made him feel like 20 years younger. He was obviously a little bit of a hyper responder, I would say, but he felt incredible. So we're doing full genome sequencing and a bunch of tests on him to figure out why he responded so well to it. But
so
he won.
that's a test subject. See
Yes,
what's going
yes,
on. Yeah.
yeah, because he had a crazy response to it, and he felt great, and he obviously won the #1 world champion again.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but of course he has a lot of wear and tear because he's doing arm wrestling and heavy lifting and that kind of stuff for decades now. So and same with Ed Cohn. I mean, he set world records decades ago. So there's a lot of wear and tear there. So I'm sure that there's such a dramatic change, because even though those guys might be like healthy, the joints, connective tissue, and all that stuff, right, that might be a little bit impaired by that age.
Yeah, exactly. You start getting chronic inflammation, right? And that's really what starts to cause the pain cycle. Because
Right.
we know that the correlation between imaging and pain is poor. So there's people who
Hmm.
have advanced bone-on-bone osteoarthritis and have no pain, and there's people who have mild osteoarthritis and have severe pain. So if we know that, then it's like, okay, what's the actual cause of pain? It's chronic inflammation, it's bone edema, and it's biomechanics. So that's really where it comes from. Um, Sorry, someone's knocking at my door, so probably gonna have to edit.
So earlier on, you mentioned briefly about SS31 and MOTS-c. How are those being used currently, and what do you see like are the real practical applications of these kinds of peptides in combination with stem cell treatment regarding like mitochondrial function? Because that's still poorly understood, but it kind of regulates everything.
It is, yeah, exactly. And you obviously have very good intuition, because the research as it's coming out in the last few years, especially in the last couple of years, like I was the last 2 years really, the mitochondria are really coming out to be probably one of the pivotal roles in chronic disease, and obviously in aging, which is the most complex form of chronic disease, which
Yeah.
is why aging fascinates me so much. I'm not really fascinated by aging because I want to make rich people live forever. I could care less about that, but I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by aging because I think it gives us, if we can solve aging, even in not completely, but in many ways, then it can help many chronic diseases. Because
Right.
it turns out the 12 hallmarks of aging are actually the same underlying cellular dysfunctions that happen in almost all chronic diseases, whether that's heart disease, that's dementia, that's diabetes. Like it's the same underlying hallmarks, and so that's what makes it so interesting. So if these underlying hallmarks are actually the root cause, then we can actually treat the root cause as opposed to just treating the surface level. So that's why I like this whole field so much. And SS31, what it does is it helps to protect the mitochondria from oxidative stress. So the mitochondria have something called the mitochondrial inner membrane, MIM, and it's basically where the electron transport chain, where the ATP is made, where you have these ion gradients, and in there, that's what over time produces reactive oxygen species, ROS. And those ROS, there's a balance, just like in most things in your body, there's a homeostasis. You don't want too much, you don't want too little, and you need the right balance for your body to be able to kind of function optimally. And so what happens to most people as you age is your ability to deal with that ROS becomes less and less. And so these ROS build up. And then when those ROS build up, that triggers the peroxisome to not be able to deal with it. And so you get something called oxidative stress. And then that oxidative stress is what leads to all these other downstream effects. And that's why like including chronic inflammation. And then all the other hallmarks of aging go from there.
Right.
So that's why the leading theory, I think, on this is what we talked about earlier, is that unitary theory of aging, which we think a lot of it comes down to this really maybe potentially as a root cause. So if we can keep your mitochondria healthy, I think we can help keep your body healthy in a lot of ways. It's not the only factor, but it's one of the most important factors, which no one measures, obviously. Like GPs are just a lost cause. They don't understand anything about. Unfortunately, it's not their fault. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't know anything about they don't know anything about biochemistry, and they only know about the drugs and how they work, and their education is so poor. But anyway, so there are companies out there that are doing metabolomics, which measure thousands of different metabolites from mitochondria, so you can gauge your mitochondrial health. But I don't really see huge value in those because, again, like we can probably discern that as you age, we kind of know it's not going to change management. Everyone can probably use some support for their mitochondria as they age, and it's something as a gestalt. I think that can be as a blanket recommendation as a good idea. Hence why NMN became popular, because NMN supports the mitochondria because it helps with NAD, which is
levels.
which is an intermediary, which helps with with energy production and everything. But the problem is there's actually studies showing that NMN may accelerate sclerosis in the kidneys and actually help and actually make things worse in the kidneys and oxidative stress. And I don't. That. Yeah, exactly. Shit. So that paper came out last year, and so I'm not totally convinced about NMN as many people, just because of one guy. So it's.
I still like it though. I still like it, but it's in combination with NAD plus IV every week.
Or you have to combine it with SS31, I would say.
I've ran SS31 for about 2 weeks, but of course the price is quite high, and I did not notice an immediate positive effect. And this is coming from a compounding pharmacy, so I discontinued it. I ran a lot of MOTS-c, which is the peptide that helps with mitochondrial signaling. But SS31 I didn't notice much. But again, I'm in a very good state of health.
Yeah, I don't think SS31 is going to give you performance benefits. I think it's more just for mechanistically, it's going to have that protective mechanism for oxidative stress, and it's going to have and the only way to measure it, I think, would be like a cellular aging test, which the company we're working with is called Generation Lab. It'll be coming out soon. They're a Harvard group. They have, I think, the best technology when it comes to aging. It measures something called biological noise. Other than that, most of the aging tests are garbage. They're just very, very not valid, and there's so much variability. But anyway, so the point is, if you want to see if SS31 is actually having an impact, that's probably one way to measure it. Other than that, mechanistically speaking, though, the study I was talking about, when they combined SS31 with NMN, it didn't have that deleterious effect that NMN had on its own. So
Okay.
SF31 probably has some sort of protective and synergistic like mechanism with NMN. So I think if you're going to take NMN, I would recommend probably cycling with SF31 as well. But to your point about if you want to actually see some sort of clinical benefits, I would say MOTS-c is definitely going to give you more of that because it can improve cardiovascular fitness and function. I've used it with pro athletes. I've used it myself to help with respiratory function and CV fitness. And basically, like you said, it helps with mitochondrial signaling, which can help with cardiovascular fitness and output and just increasing your VO2 max, which is really obviously going to have all these other great, we know VO2 max is obviously a great way to gauge your health. And so it's going to be a good thing for your body if you're going to use MOTS-c. And you, again, use something you can cycle or you can use even, I mean, there could be maybe an argument made, but maybe using it indefinitely. But I think cycling with peptides in general, well, at least with certain peptides, is best. But yeah, MOTS-c, I think doing that, it can be very beneficial for cardiovascular fitness. And I think improving, I think, for us, if we can create the ultimate biohacking fitness package, and MOTS-c would be probably part of that with Follistatin. And probably we're going to have FMT, which is going to be our second generation fecal microbial transplant. Is essentially going to be one of the donors that we're going to have are there's Olympic athletes who have been found to have this bifidobacterium called OLP01. And when you transplant it into regular people, it actually increases cardiovascular fitness. So microbes can play a role in cardiovascular fitness too. So that's another way to biohack your body to improve cardiovascuar health and fitness without it.
So when they retire, they literally turn to a poop factory and they can sell.
Yes, exactly, literally.
So hey, at least you got your, when you retire, you got everything set up already financially.
Yeah, exactly. So, but how cool is that? You could take someone else's microbes that can improve just from the microbes alone can improve your cardiovascular fitness. So
yeah, I mean, I heard about stool transplants in some individuals that improve their cognitive abilities and their overall mental health because they get the bacteria to contribute to serotonin, 5-HTP production, and dopamine, which some of the neurotransmitters are being produced in the intestinal tract. So you notice that there's some sort of benefit there. But if it can improve performance, wow, yeah, it's a lot of stuff that I'm very, very excited for. What about 5-amino-1-MQ? Have you ever looked into that?
I know about it, but I haven't done a deep dive into it. I don't. You probably have done. Have you done a deep dive?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I even talked to the researchers because I reviewed their studies, and then some of them reached out and said, "Hey, this was really cool." So it's an N-methyltransferase inhibitor, which prevents the breakdown of nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide in adipose tissue, and thus keeps metabolic rate in adipose tissue going. And if you combine that with MOTS-c and NMN or NAD+ administrations, you see a tremendous energy surge in the elderly, but also in the youthful guys. So when I ran a protocol of NMN, NAD+, MOTS-c, and 5-amino-1-MQ, you literally have energy for days.
Yeah. The way we have, as you know, I'm a minimalist. So the way I do that is we use something called placental tissue. So we take placental tissue, we isolate the part that has these growth factors, but they have signaling molecules, and we lyophilize it, which means we freeze dry it basically, and then we mix it with saline and we inject it subcutaneously, and it increases intracellular NAD for up to 3 months. So it's a easy way to. So yeah.
What am I doing, man? I got 100 vials of NAD+ in the fridge.
Yeah. So just come whenever we meet up in person. I'll give you a placental matrix injection, and it's an easy way. I just do it once every 3 months, and it gives you such a great boost surge of energy. Yeah.
Oh my God, man! I got to fly to Tokyo now.
Yeah, exactly. We got to hook you up.
For sure. Hey, man, this was insightful and eye-opening. Thank you so much for your time. This was great.
No, it was fun. Great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Have a nice day in London, and I hope to see you soon. We got a lot to discuss. Yeah, a lot of treatments to discuss.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah. Okay, take care.
Have a nice day. Take care.
Bye.
Ciao.